Good evening, I'm John Carter and welcome to Poland Daily. Having taken place over a week ago, it seemed as if the Polish parliamentary elections were well behind us. However, the electoral protest filed by the Law and Justice Party concerning the alleged discrepancies in the counting of votes for some candidates led to the opposition accusing the ruling party of stripping away democracy. In response, politicians from Law and Justice stress they're not doing anything illegal and simply want to make sure there were no malpractices committed during the counting process.
The Law and Justice Party have filed 6 motions to the Supreme Court asking for a repeat counting of the votes to the Senate, where the ruling party lost a majority by a small margin. The Supreme Court will investigate the case using the newly created Commission for Special Control in Public Matters. According to the politicians of the opposition, it spells the end for Polish democracy, as the judges were chosen for the Commission by the Law and Justice. It doesn't matter who votes, it only matters who counts the votes, said Joseph Stalin, and I think Jarosław Kaczyński paid much attention to these words and has a similar standpoint on politics as Stalin. We have a scandal on our hands, as Law and Justice doesn't accept the outcome of the elections.
Mamy wielki skandal w Polsce.
Politicians of the ruling party stated the whole procedure is legal and that they only have doubts concerning the invalid votes, which could turn out to be favorable for the Law and Justice. It's a standard procedure for resolving doubts concerning the invalid votes. They could have an influence on the outcome of the elections, so it needs to be checked, especially in the constituencies where the difference was very small, in example 300 votes. The Supreme Court has until January 13, 2020 to make a decision. Since the fall of communism in 1989, the highest judicial institution in Poland ruled for repeated elections only once, in 2005, when in the Częstochowa constituency the name of the electoral committees were missing.
The Institute of National Remembrance handed the Semper Fidelis Awards for the first time to people and institutions which particularly helped to preserve the Polish heritage in the borderlands. The borderlands are eastern parts of Poland, which were taken away by the Soviet Union following the Yalta Conference in 1945. Among those awarded were priest Roman Zwardnowski, sociologist and professor of social sciences, the president of the Association of Home Army Officers in Belarus, Colonel Weronika Sebastianowicz, and commander of the Polish Scouts in Ukraine and Lithuania, Stefan Adamski.
Ile w nas jest Kresów?
How much of the borderlands is within us? How many little stories which we learn about, if not by family, then by touching on the culture of these lands? We're not doing this to oppose anyone else, but we want these traditions preserved and this culture to be accessible to those who currently live there.
Naszych rodaków.
Walczyliśmy w różnych okresach.
We fought in different times, but we all fought for Poland. I'm very happy that I was given this award, because when I was in prison or sent to Siberia, I never thought I would make it out of there alive. I would never dream of coming back home, to Poland, not to mention receiving an award like this.
Nawet nie marzyłam o tym, że kiedyś przyjadę do Polski.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will remain in power after yesterday's federal election in Canada. His Liberal Party won 156 out of 338 mandates, while the Conservative Party took 122. However, this time the gaffe-prone former substitute teacher will have to form a coalition government with the Social Democrats from the New Democratic Party or separatists from Quebec. Trudeau has announced that his main focus in the coming term in office will be the fight against climate change. Suchet Falzic, mayor of Biac, a Bosnian town near the border with Croatia, announced yesterday that the city will stop providing food and water for thousands of migrants in the Vujac camp.
The desperate move comes following a sharp increase in new migrant arrivals to Bosnia after Greece decided to move thousands of migrants from overcrowded camps on the Aegean Islands to mainland Greece. The Vujac camp near Bihać made news recently as a viral video showed more than 1,000 migrants escorted by a couple of Bosnian police officers to the camp. The Vujac camp, about 8 kilometers from the border with Croatia, was built over a former landfill, where landmines remain from the Yugoslav wars of the 1990s. Many of the migrants complain about living conditions in the camp.
And we are living here, you see the tents, and there is no bed and no that double bed, you know. And we are living on ground. So the situation is too bad. And when we are going on game to the Croatia or to moving to Europa, so when they are catching us and sending back us here, and when they are catching us, they are beating us very hard, and they are not seeing that we are humans or animals.
Other migrants also accuse the Croatian border guards of using severe violence to keep the migrants away from the Croatian border.
We have many problems in Bosnia. Don't have water and no food, no medical. And when we go across the border, Croatia, they will beat us and take everything: bag, shoes, food.
Over 40,000 migrants have entered Bosnia since 2018, of whom around 7,300 have settled in the northwest Bihać area, hoping to cross into nearby Croatia and go on to the affluent north and west of the EU. The mayor of Bihać argues that the city can't continue to carry the burden alone. I don't want us to close the camps, but migrants are coming here to Bihać from the entire country, from all directions, and want to cross to Croatia. Firstly, we, the local community, are the only ones to carry this burden. We cannot continue spending taxpayers' money on them because we don't have it. Secondly, unless there is no government strategy, we will also ask to close the informal migrant camp in the former refrigerator factory Bira and leave solving the problem to those in charge. The International Organization for Migration has criticized the conditions in the camp and urged Bosnia to close it and relocate the population to more appropriate facilities. The problems in Bosnia are expected to grow as the Balkan route of migration becomes increasingly crowded, with a new stream of migrants arriving to Europe through Turkey.
Thank you very much for joining me here this evening at Poland Daily. I'm John Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily Weather. It's followed by the business, then it's the culture, the history, and then finally the travel.
I'm Aleksandra Zarzycka and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Have a look at the forecast for tonight. Temperature will grow up to 14 degrees in Zielona Góra. In the rest of the country, temperature will range about 11 and 12 degrees. We don't expect any rainfalls this night. Sky will be a light overcast on the northwest. Let's look at the map for tomorrow. Temperature will increase to 24 degrees in Kraków and Wrocław. The minimum temperature will be 17 in Koszalin. Light overcast skies will be on the northwest. More sunlight will appear in the rest of the country. Let's check the weather for the next days. On Thursday, temperature will range from 70 to 23 degrees. Pressure will fall. Friday will bring us a little lower temperature, ranging between 60 and 21 degrees. On Saturday, weather will improve. In the whole country, loads of sun we will see. Thank you for watching and see you soon.
You're watching Poland Daily Business Edition, and our guest tonight, Jerzy Bielewicz, Gazeta Bankowa writer and financial analyst, is the guest. Sir, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you for
let us
invitation.
Say a few words about Polish banking system, because we have new insights from the Bloomberg report.
It's not Bloomberg report, it's a McKinsey report. It's a big, very, very good consulting American consulting firm, and what they say in the report is that half of the world's banks may be in trouble in case of financial crisis. It's very alarming report, and it raises the question about Polish banking sector. It's true that, for example, European banks, German banks, are not in a good shape. And banks like Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, they just announced even more cuts in the workforce, and they withdraw from Poland, by the way. Deutsche Bank withdrew from Poland and sold all its assets in Poland, except French franc
loans or mortgages.
Mortgages, yeah. And the same applies to Commerzbank that announced that the bank would like to sell its Polish arm, which is mBank. And there would be some interest.
This is a big news because mBank is one of the most popular consumer banks here in Poland. It was championing the electronic way of dealing. It was one of the first to introduce fully online operations for their local customers, small businesses, and so on, so on. There are thousands of people who are using this particular bank, and they are selling.
But unfortunately, they made the same mistake as Deutsche Bank, and they went into Swiss franc mortgages, which causes problems right now. And they would probably do the same as Deutsche Bank. That means that they would be able to sell all the other assets except of Swiss franc mortgages.
This Swiss francs mortgages were perfectly legal 10 years ago. Right now, it is being seen as a rip-off of the consumers.
10 years ago. It's very, very similar products to U.S. mortgages, so-called subprimes, even worse. So the banks that were selling these products were very, very aggressive, and they paid the price right now, and especially German banks. But Polish sector is quite strong. Polish banking sector is quite strong. There would be a consolidation in the sector, that's for sure. The remaining banks, big banks, it would be probably PKO BP, PKO SA, ING, and probably BNP Paribas. The rest of the banks would more likely be taken over by bigger banks. But the balance sheet of the banks, Polish banks, is quite good. For example, BlackRock investment fund entered Polish banking sector, and they increased its holding of PKO SA to 5% recently. So it's Polish sector, banking sector is in very good shape. Maybe except some cooperative financials.
Do you expect any problems with access to capital for, say, mortgages, for businesses, with the situation when the major Western European banks are withdrawing from Poland?
No, I wouldn't. No. The opposite. It's very good time for Poland because geopolitics is reshaping, and Poland location is very, very good. That's why we have still very good growth, economic growth, moderate inflation, very, very good financial conditions in our country as compared to our neighbors.
Yes. Do they expect problems in the banking sector in the West? The news or the symptoms of problems are all over the place except Poland. Are we going to the recession right
Eastern
now?
and Central European countries. Yeah, it's a lot of noise about coming recession, and the risk of recession is going up because, for example, today's news, South Korea, 20% exports are 20% down in this month as compared to a year ago. 20%, it's a huge number. And consumer spendings are down as well. So there would be recession. The recession would be in Germany.
Poland is also a country that is driven very much by the exports. And aren't we afraid of the lowering of quality?
It's just amazing how in good shape the Polish economy is. Just last news is Polish industrial production, which increased 10% in September as compared to August, and on annual basis increase over 5.5%. So we are in a very, very, very good shape, and contrary, our exports are going up because we're still a low-cost producer, and potential economic crisis would result in our share of European trade increasing. For example, within 3C initiative, the trade between those countries is increasing. We are increasing trade with the US. Yeah, that's because of reshaping the of trading routes.
Some people, few months ago, when this was announced, when we learned that the trade routes and logistic chains are going to be changing the world, some people trembled in Poland and say, oh, we're going to be hurt by that. But others said, including this program, that it's going to be good for this country's economy, and it is.
Yeah, and proofs are all over the place. Poland is in very good shape, and even such a powerhouse as BlackRock enter into banking sector, which, according to McKinsey report, may be in trouble in case of financial crisis.
Jerzy Bielewicz, financial analyst and Gazeta Bankowa writer, sir. Thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you very much.
And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Welcome back to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. Temperature will increase to 24 degrees in Kraków and Wrocław. The minimum temperature will be 17 in Koszalin. Light overcast skies will be on the northwest. More sunlight will appear in the rest of the country. Now let's check the weather for our continent. On the Iberian Peninsula, temperature will fall to 14 degrees in Madrid and 18 in Lisbon. In Central Europe, we are expecting more sunlight and higher temperatures. Still warm in the Balkans. There, the temperature will range from 20 to 27 degrees. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and this is Poland Daily Culture. Being an artist those days ain't an easy task. The question is, do we at all need artists? We are going to convince you that yes, we do. In order to do it, a young Polish painter, Joasia Gąska, opened the doors of her studio for us. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for having me, Maria.
But before we start, let's have a look at her works. You are a young artist and a painter, but you didn't study art at high school or later during your studies. So tell us, why did you become a painter? How did it all happen?
It happened when I was a very young person. I was 7, and my grandfather forced me to paint on holidays instead of doing normal things like children do.
So instead of playing or going out, you were forced to paint.
Yeah, he was telling me that that is not serious what I'm doing, and it should be more serious and more real. And he was showing me Michelangelo stuff and like that, and was telling that I'm actually a very primitive artist and it shouldn't be like that.
So he was criticizing your primitivism and forcing you more to figurative art.
Yeah. Yeah.
Show us something which you painted when you were.
This is my first painting ever. I was 7 then, and this was this holidays piece of art made instead of playing.
Well, for a 7-year-old girl,
Not that bad.
Very good. Not that bad at all.
Not that good also, but not that bad.
That's very interesting altogether. What techniques do you use?
I use acrylics because it's very important for me to be able to make it fast. It's very important for that to be able to do it fast. I mean, the way from the concept.
And especially with oil, you probably would need a lot of time for it to dry and a different place.
Yeah, exactly.
Studio, because it's dangerous for health, isn't it? If you
everything is dangerous for health.
when it comes to painting. Tell us more about your techniques when it comes to do you have models? Do people come to you, or you use pictures, or how do you start a painting?
I make photos of things happening in reality, and it's very important. These things have to mean something. It's very important for me, and if something is meaningful, then it can become piece of art. Yeah.
I understand. So there's always a concept in.
Yes.
It seems that you put a lot of politics to your art as well, and that you kind of comment everything what's going around us or what's going around in media currently.
Media is a sphere that is very visible, and it's all around, so it's inspiring in an obvious way.
So it's not, it won't leave the viewer or the observer untouched, or it's always sometimes either ironical in your paintings. For example, Donald Trump with a fairy. So it seems like she is actually putting a spell on him, and that's maybe influence his decisions. Or you're just making a joke.
No, isn't Ivanka some sort of fairy?
Well, she definitely has an element of Disney fairy. So you find out those elements of something from stories or from which is shiny, different, and you take it out.
I'm trying because I don't think that reality is that much serious as it is shown, and I guess it doesn't have to be that much aggressive as it is very often in media, for example.
Do you make portraits of people? In a way,
sometimes.
Can someone come to you? Can I come to you and I will get a portrait?
You have to.
I even have to.
Yeah, you have.
So would you hire, would you be, as for example Witkacz used to be, a painter of a society? Haven't you thought about this?
Yeah, I thought about that. I even painted some celebrities a few years ago. They were showing some features that weren't necessarily very nice, you know.
So you were ironic again.
I saw that, and it wasn't very cute, you know.
But you can create a nice picture of someone.
I can, yeah, I can if I want to. If I like somebody.
Okay. If any of the viewers of Poland Daily are looking for a painter to create a self-portrait or a portrait, we recommend you to call Joasia Gąska or just comment under the video, and probably you can make an arrangement and get this portrait. And thank you for watching Poland Daily Culture.
Welcome back to Poland Daily History. I'm here in the studio with Anglo-Polish filmmaker Stefan Thompson. Stefan, welcome again. Among the films you've made, and while we're on this subject of sort of controversy from history, you've made a number of films and have looked into this whole concept, this very emotive issue, of course, of the German concentration camps. which were built, unfortunately, on Polish territory, and of course, which have caused some degree of distress in international press when careless journalists have referred to Polish death camps, of course, which is very unfortunate. I mean, and you also went to Berlin and talked to Germans, and I was wondering, what is the assessment you think from the German side of this memory of these terrible places?
The very first thing I have to say is regards to your question is you said on Polish territory. I'd like to specify the camps were built on German-occupied Polish territory.
I'm as guilty as everybody else.
There we are.
Yes.
There we are. Broadly speaking, to put the matter in shortest possible terms, people who support the term Polish death camp will usually argue that the word Polish denotes location rather than responsibility, and that term bears no impact on whether the Poles were complicit or not.
Yes.
The shortest way of arguing against this is obviously saying that we refer to multiple things. For example, Roman buildings in the United Kingdom, we refer to them as Roman buildings. Adrian's Wall, for example. I mean, we don't call them sort of British Roman ruins. We call them Roman ruins that, they happen to be.
So we should be quite clear
UK.
and say.
So I think in this sense, I think that they're German, definitely the German Nazi death camps in I mean, if one wants to specify, in Poland. The fascinating thing is that some camps that aren't even located in current-day Poland, for example, Dachau has been referred to as a Polish concentration camp.
Which is bizarre because that was never anywhere near Poland,
right?
Yes.
So that term, and I think that term definitely there is an element of shifting, there is an element of confusion. And with the Second World War being 80 years away now, it's quite a long time. It's passing out of living memory, and people are less and less clear about who was responsible. And in fact, the most terrifying thing of all is that as that memory, as those events are passing out of living memory, the youth is less and less aware of what happened. The recent studies in the United States showed that about 50% of teenagers in the US weren't even aware of what the Holocaust was, which is a very terrifying thing.
That is remarkable, isn't it, when you think of the amount of historical programming now that is available, and the emphasis that so much is put on this terrible chapter in our history, that people are still generally ignorant of what went on.
Yeah, it's absolutely shocking and very worrying, because one of the things that is crucial for civil society and liberal democracy to continue is an understanding of what totalitarianism is and where it can lead to. And having the youth not understand what the dangers are of totalitarian ideology, where it can lead to, be it the Gulag or be it death camps, on either sides of the extreme is very worrying. So, but to answer your question, I did go to Berlin. I spent some time speaking both to historians, to experts. I actually spoke to some members of the far right, of the German far right, to ask them about this as well. And I spoke to sort of members of the public. I did a so-called vox pop, and we did it with my brother who was filming. We did it by the Shoah Memorial, which is a very interesting place, because it's a place that has about 2,711 from memory. I'm not sure if don't quote me on this, but slabs, concrete slabs each representing a page of the Talmud. It's a sprawling monument. It's the size of several football fields in the very center of Berlin. It's an incredible place, very haunting, very eerie, and in fact very terrifying in the sense that a lot of people, as they went to, I don't believe they were fully aware of what this place was. And one of the things is that the way the slabs are built, they're built in increasing size, which makes it a very easy thing to climb and to sort of jump around on, which people were doing as we were there. And that was an incredibly unsettling sight to see, having a memorial to the victims, to the 6 million people murdered in the Holocaust, and having people, members of the public, sort of probably blissfully unaware of what this was, jumping around on it. But as we stood there and asked people about it, and we asked them about the role of Poland in the Second World War, the thing that came out the most was absolute ignorance as to that chapter of history, and a very strong fear of actually speaking about those times and about German responsibility. It wasn't something that people were comfortable talking about. So it made for some very uncomfortable interviews. But of that time I spent in Berlin, I think the most fascinating meeting of all was with meetings with representatives of the far right, and young men, and we spoke at length. That was the purpose of the meeting, was to speak at length about German history and about pride in Germany, because I wouldn't want to deny anyone the right to be proud in their nation.
Of course not, no.
But it is, when your history is such that in living memory, still passing living memory, but nonetheless living memory, your country ended up not only voting for and embracing a totalitarian ideology that led to the deaths of 50 million people and occupied, well, not only Poland, but the vast majority of Europe and caused absolute utter chaos, death and destruction, with consequences reaching, the consequences of the Second World War are still echoing into today.
Indeed they are.
I mean, open any newspaper on any given day in Poland and you will find a reference to World War II. I don't believe that there is a single day that passes that World War II is not discussed somewhere in Poland in the press. And it was very, very interesting to talk to them about that, and it was, in a sense, it was quite haunting because despite acknowledging the crimes, I had a feeling that there was nonetheless a desire to definitely overlook those times, and for various reasons, whether they be right or wrong, of embracing again various elements of that ideology for various purposes. Were they nefarious or not is not up to me to decide. I believe I didn't spend enough time to reach such conclusions. But nonetheless, it was very worrying, especially to me as a Pole. So that was, I think, one of the most interesting things I did in Berlin. And it was, as I think about it, I feel a slightly eerie feeling inside.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, I think this is when we see in the modern era politicians stirring up differences between people, picking on imaginary enemies. It's not hard to see how, if this gets out of hand, it could lead to something very unpleasant, which is probably a good point to end this section, hoping we don't see anything unpleasant.
Hopefully.
Stefan, thank you very much.
Thank you
for
very
that.
much, Nicholas.
Aha, I told you about the Shetland pony, and there is one. There you are. What's your name? Do we know? Do we know what your name is? Oh, that's a good fella. That's a good fella. You're only little, I know, but very strong, apparently, the Shetland pony. Yeah, to survive on the Shetland Islands, you got to be very good in the outdoors. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? It's true, isn't it? Sorry, I don't have an apple for you. Anyway, that's the Shetland pony story. Back to our walk through the town. See you later, mate. Hello, folks. Well, Bogna brought me into this tiny room. She said, sit down, and she gave me this piece of straw to chew on. I don't know why she did that, and told me I had to wear this hat. I don't know where everybody has gone, but apparently, well, it's a pretty nice accommodation. You get your, you get your pallet. You get your pallet with your straw, and you get your 3 square meals a day, and it's all courtesy of the city, because this here's the jail, folks. Yep. In the old days, it's pretty clean. I don't know if it would have been that clean if it were being used on a regular basis. But at any rate, Bogna, you can let me out now. Bogna, hey.
Yeah, yes, I'm here.
You can let me out now.
I'm not sure if I want to do that.
You're not sure if you want to do that? Why? We're not even married. What could you have
said
against
that
me?
It's a nice place and clean.
I feel like Paul Newman and Cool Hand Luke, you know. But I don't think he wore a silly hat. That's more Strother Martin. At any rate, okay, folks, I'll just wait for Bogna to let me out, and hopefully I'll get out before the day is over. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Poland Daily Travel. In this series of episodes, we will be showing you the city of Lublin. That's right, Lublin, the great city east of the Wisła River in Poland, otherwise known as the Vistula River, that is. Lublin's an amazing city. It's really quite a fantastic place to stop off. Absolutely dripping with history and fun. It is the 9th largest city in Poland. It is the capital and center of the Lubelska province. And it's about 170 kilometers southeast of the capital, Warsaw. It was the Polish-Lithuanian Union in 1385 that really put Lublin on the map, on a strategic route between Krakow and Vilnius. The Lublin Parliament of 1569 created an actual union between Lithuania and Poland. It was the Lublin Parliament of 1569 that actually united Lithuania and Poland politically. So we're going to be getting an all-round view of the city. We're going to the Museum of Lublin in the countryside. This is a fantastic and captivating living museum of the way life was in the region 100 and more years ago, focusing particularly on the interwar period. That's the period from 1919 to 1939. We'll also go to the Royal Castle in Lublin, and we'll check out the Holy Trinity Chapel with some of the most, well, breathtaking frescoes you're going to see anywhere in Europe. We'll stroll through the old town and comment on its captivating Jewish history. Catholics and Jews lived side by side in Lublin in Lubelski province for hundreds of years. It was a peaceful and fruitful cooperation. We'll also take a look at a brewery which is at the center of the development of the economics in the province, and we'll take a look at the museum and see how beer is and was made. And lastly, but not least, we'll head to a onion bread bakery, and we're going to go through the ritual of how you make onion bread, a staple product along with beer in this region. All in all, you're going to find this an extremely rewarding trip to Lublin, and we hope that you'll see it in a light that you've never seen it before. Poland Daily Travel. Why do we do it? We do it for you. We promise you nothing but the best. Lublin, past, present, and future with Poland Daily Travel. Hi, Bogna.
Hi.
Is part of the punishment when you're in jail having to wear a very silly straw hat? Was that part of it? They made him wear this silly straw hat so they would feel even more humiliated than just being in jail?
I'm not sure that we can just touch it.
No? Can I have it back? Yeah. I feel I got used to it by now. So wait, if I turn it like that, do I look a bit like a 19th century Polish Zorro? What do you think?
Okay.
Yeah? No? I'm just making that
No,
up.
you
Where are we
are
going?
rather like a thief.
A thief?
Mhm.
You think so? Okay. All right. Thanks very much. Good Lord. That's not a good
I'm
recommendation.
sorry.
That's a good thing I'm not applying for a job here. At any rate, what are we going to see next? What's going on? This is the jail. Yeah.
Yes, and we go to the city.
Mm-hmm.
In the 19th century, many little cities, not many little towns in this area of Poland lost status of the city.
Okay.
It was after 1963, after January uprising.
Mm-hmm.
And we will see such
1863, yeah? 1863.
1863, of course.
The January uprising against Russians. Yeah, against the Russians. Okay, so a lot of people lost their town charters. A lot of towns lost their charters. But the towns look pretty similar to what we're going to see now, right? The small towns. Okay, shall we go have a look? Okay, let's go. I want to change hats. You know. Ah, that's her. Just put this hat back where it belongs and get out of here very quick.